Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. With the release of the Tomb Raider 4-6 remasters, we can finally judge all the classic Tomb Raider games on an equal playing field. So to start the first of hopefully a new series of ranking videos, we're looking at the final fights of all the Tomb Raider games. These fights, the final obstacle standing between Lara and the artifact she seeks, are the capstone to their games. But which one is better than the rest? We're looking at each boss based on their design, their build-up before their battle, and most importantly, the mechanics of the battle themselves. So without further ado, the final bosses of classic Tomb Raider, ranked. At last place are a pair of not really real bosses, but more like super enemies. They are the androids found in the final level of Tomb Raider Chronicles. Now to be fair to them, they are really cool as they are intimidating Terminator types that threaten to turn Lara into mincemeat. However, they're nothing more than glorified puzzles, really. Whilst electrocuting one of the guards was a very great set piece, as you can see, and the other one less so, as you simply run past them in the helicopter escape sequence. They're not bosses at all, so let's just move on. It was a toss-up between this and the number 4 pick on this list, but the boss truly in last place on this list is the final boss of Tomb Raider Revelations, the God of the Dead himself, Set. Make no mistake, in terms of build-up, Set is certainly handled very well, confronting Lara at numerous stages and trying to sway her to his side. But whilst Tomb Raider 4 was certainly a step forward in narrative, the boss fight itself isn't really a boss fight. It is really a platforming puzzle as Lara attempts to find a way to seal away Set whilst dodging his laser attacks. While I do not hate it, I think it strays too far away from what a good, old-fashioned boss fight is. So he takes the last place, let's get the androids, of this list. Coming just outside the top 3 for boss fights is none other than the main antagonist of Angel of Darkness, Pietro von Eckhart. He makes it higher in my rankings for combining the build-up that Set had, he cuts a very intimidating figure throughout the game, and finally is an actual fight. Eckhart is more or less a positioning test for the player, firing a number of energy attacks that requires Lara to dodge them long enough for her to manage to impale him 3 times. Thereby this boss is a bit more involved in actual combat, although I do find that over the course of the fight, it gets a bit repetitive. However, what keeps Eckhart down in my opinion is he is one of the few bosses not directly defeated by Lara. As at the very end, Lara is interrupted before she can deal the final blow, and Eckhart is finished off in a cutscene by someone else. Still, a very big step up from Set. I really hope Bartoli's hideout can forgive me, but getting the bronze medal for Tomb Raider boss fights, it's Marco Bartoli, Dragon from Tomb Raider 2. Of all the bosses on this list, I would argue there is nothing quite so cool as taking down a massive Chinese dragon, with the arena being probably the best made of any boss fight so far, with pools of water to douse Lara should she catch fire, and pillars to break line of sight. This fight can also be tackled in many ways. You can try to loop the dragon around the pillars whilst peppering him with bullets, or perhaps you take an offensive approach and retreat to the water should you get burned. I consider the jump from Eckhart to Bartoli to be quite massive, with my only issues with the boss being that Lara never gets any real interaction with Bartoli as a villain. We mostly just hear of him from other characters, and no words are exchanged during the final confrontation. And if you know what you're doing, it's very easy to cheese him. Still, an excellent boss and an excellent way to close out Lara's second adventure. Now, I will admit this is really a boss that shocked me in how high I would place it in the list, but there are some caveats. For example, this ranking assumes that you do Nevada, the levels, first so you have all weapons coming into this fight by the end. And for me, I completed this with modern controls, so I cannot speak to tank controls. But for me, Dr. Willard combines the setup of other villains like Eckhart, he cuts an intimidating figure in his spider form, all whilst actually executing on the boss fight itself. You see, Willard is invincible for most of the boss fight and requires Lara to do enough damage to stun him. long enough to run and grab the artifact pieces from the 4 corridors in the arena. As such, this boss fight tests the player's ability to position themselves correctly, to take advantage of that short window where Willard is stunned, and it also is an ammo check. Only after collecting every piece can the player finally destroy Willard for good. What's more, unlike Bartoli, Willard isn't so easily cheesable, and as such you actually have to have real skill here, as opposed to getting him stuck on the geography. Willard truly deserves the silver medal of Tomb Raider final bosses. And now for the gold medal of classic Tomb Raider bosses, we have the Atlantean Queen herself, Jacqueline Natla. Of all bosses on this list, Natla has arguably the best setup with Lara as a villain, being the woman who hires Lara at the start of the game in an effort to trick Lara into finding the 2 cyan pieces for her, then nearly killing Lara once she's gotten what she wants from her. Finally, Lara pretty much destroys her plans, and Natla makes a final bid to kill Croft in her crumbling pyramid. Natla is the rare Tomb Raider boss with actual phases, with her first phase seeing her take to the air to rain down fire on Lara, forcing the player to constantly be on the move or using cover to stay ahead. When you defeat her the first time, Natla plays dead, only to rise again from the grave and fights you on the ground, which can catch you off guard on the first run. It is strange that such boss designs are pretty rare across the series, where that's what helps her stand out. Speaking of standing out, Natla's boss design is actually pretty cool. Unlike the more sinister designs of other bosses, Natla, with the battle damage done to her from her earlier tumble down the shaft, she looks less scary and more desperate to kill Lara as her plans crumble around her. Fitting how, despite appearing in only 3 of 12 mainline Tomb Raider games, Natla is considered Lara's arch nemesis. Well, that's all from me. Do you agree with my rankings, or do you think I am way off the mark here? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to show me some support if you want to see more videos like this in the future. That's all from today. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space.